So good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel. I'm the facilitator of Law of One Europe Telegram group, and we will have today a session with Jim on Q&As regarding the material, the Law of One, or related topics. Our group will be published very soon under the research homepage under the section study groups, so you can find us. And now I wanted to very welcome Jim McCarty. Hello, Jim.
Hey, it's good to see you, Daniel, and everyone else.
Yes.
Hope you're all doing well.
You, Jim.
Cold.
So how you doing? How's the weather over there? I hope much better
Well,
than here.
we're in a cold spell too. We've been below freezing quite a bit here for the last 2 weeks, but supposedly within the next couple of days, we're going to warm up again. So
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, here similar. We have also the first snow in Berlin the last 2 days, and now hopefully we get a bit more warm, but we all hope for White Christmas for sure. That is one of the topics we all of us like, surely. So then I would like to start. Let me start with one of my own favorite question that is from the session 42, where we where the Don was asking, would the perfectly balanced entity feel any emotional response when being attacked by any other selves? And rather, this is correct, the response will be love. And this is one of my most favorite topics, because I would like to know how do you practice it in your daily life, and how you see it with your own, from your own point of view.
That particular question, or the general concept of balancing?
The general concept of balancing in this point.
Okay, well, what Ross suggested was that each of us has catalysts that comes our way every day. And some of the catalyst is difficult, some of it is not so difficult. But they suggested that in order to take advantage of all catalysts, we need to be able to balance it with its opposite. So if we're angry, we need to balance that with love. If we're impatient, we need to balance that with impatience, and vice versa. If you're impatient, you need to balance it with patience. The reason the balancing is so helpful and necessary is that it helps us to discover more of the 360-degree nature of our being, which is the nature of the Creator. The Creator is all things at all times. So the way we can begin a journey to that Creator and realize it within ourselves is to use all of that catalyst that comes our way, whether like in 42, we were attacked by some creature or a person or an idea or whatever it might be. We need to find the balance to that. And the way that Ross suggested that we could do that is at the end of the day in our meditations, find that quality that upset us, that knocked us off our center of love, because that center of love is where we hope to end up with all of our balancing. And what we do then is relive the experience that we just had that serves as catalyst, and we magnify it so that it is outrageously large. And the reason we do that is, Ross said, the nature of balancing distortions, one must balance distortion by finding its antithesis. And so we do that. And then we image, just for a second, we image the opposite. So if we're impatient, we image patience, and then let it develop by itself so that it is equal in intensity to the impatience. And then we accept ourselves for having both of these ways to know ourselves better and to know the Creator better. So the basic equation that Ra gave for this whole process of balancing is accept yourself, know yourself, become the Creator. So that's the basic outline as to how this all works.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone a follow-up question on that? Jochen.
Well, Jim, Daniel went so quickly over your question. Is the question about balancing, or is it about the special point Ra is making here? And I think it is quite an interesting topic, actually, to hear you speak about what Ra said, that the response would always be love to an entity that would attack a seeker on the positive path. Now, we all may imagine situations where that becomes really difficult to react with love. But what are your thoughts on these extreme situations?
My thought is that the first thing we need to remember that we are living in the third density illusion. This is not the way things really are. We seem to be separate from each other. We seem not to all be the creator. We seem not to be in harmony with all that happens, when actually the opposite is the case. But because we exist on this side of the veil of forgetting, the veil gives us a chance to use this catalyst that comes to us. And the more difficult the catalyst is, the greater the chance is that we can grow from it if we can learn to balance it. It is very easy not to balance it, to take the offense, to feel beaten upon or harmed in some way. But we need to remember that this is a temporary situation. It does not have to be that way. In our own being, we can change that by the way we use a balancing technique. Plus, we can also engage in conversation with any entity or group that seems to have had anger towards us and have challenged us or hurt us in some way. That is another way of balancing. This is something that is not usually done in the third density by people, because most people are not conscious seekers of truth. They have not discovered the law of one, that we're all part of one being, that we're all working our way back home to that one being that exists within us and within every other person and within each iota of the creation. That is where the illusion here comes in. We do not see that unity of all things. So we have to deal with what seems to be separation. And the balancing process is the way Ross suggested it. The more difficult the catalyst, more opportunity we have to balance and to find that love within us.
Wow, thank you. That was very deep. Jochen, you have no follow-up question on that one? I don't hear him, so I think no. So,
I just one point I'll ask, is there something to be perfect balanced, something to do with emotionless? What the Buddhism always say that this is to be some the 8 limb. I cannot remember at age and which stage. It should more becoming more emotionless, untouchable.
Are you asking if that's the what
Yeah,
we're looking for?
Is there relations between the perfect balance and the untouchable emotion?
I'm not sure what you mean by untouchable.
I mean, if a person is in perfect balance,
okay,
and which means who is also very emotional, untouchable anymore. There's no big joy, no big hatred, no big generous, all those things.
well, that's the goal, but that's not something that usually is accomplished within one lifetime. Most of the time, it takes more than one lifetime to do this.
Yeah.
But like Ross said, the fully balanced entity is quite rare. Most of us are still traveling that journey for our whole life and perhaps for another life or two after that. But we're always hopeful that we can find more balance, not in just what we do, but in thoughts. Ross said the things balancing more than anything else is thoughts. Actions are secondary. Whatever you have a thought that is out of balance, that also is most important to balance. So there's all kinds of opportunities to balance. This catalyst is like food for growth. And it's not an easy process, but it's one that produces, hopefully at some point, the ability to become the creator and to do the will of the creator more effectively, more purely, and more persistently in our life patterns. However, on another aspect there, you really cannot fail to do the will of the creator, because the will of the creator created everything in order to get to know itself better through all of the free will choices we make in all of our lifetimes. So we can't go wrong in that regard. Choices that might seem at one level poor or good or excellent are simply choices that help the creator to know itself. But from our point of view, in our own spiritual evolution, it's very helpful for us to be able to use that catalyst and become balanced. That takes a while, though.
Did it answer your question, Lynn?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Thank you for your question.
So we have a question from Richard. Richard, unmute your phone and ask, please.
Yes, but I just saw that Vasily still had a follow-up question that might be better to answer directly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, I didn't see
Okay,
any sign,
Vasily,
so-
then we go first for your follow-up question, and then we go to Richard's
Yeah,
question.
on this subject of the balanced entity and close to that, I have heard after we die, we do not become enlightened. So are we balanced in the fourth density, or is it something that we do here? Or what is your take on the balancing, and does it continue in the next density, for example?
Apparently, according to Ra, it continues on even into the sixth density where Ra is right now, at the end of the sixth density. Although they said that their balancing is very, very finely tuned now and is of such a nature that it isn't quite the same as what we do here. We do a very rough, basic kind of balancing that kind of produces a foundation that we build upon as we go through the higher densities. Now, when we leave this life and move into the inner planes or the heaven worlds, whatever you want to call them, we reunite with our soul stream that has chosen various pre-incarnative lessons to learn, so that we find during the incarnation that a lot of our catalyst comes in a manner that reflects these pre-incarnative choices. And usually we have just a handful of 2, 3, or 4, something like that, in a broad spectrum that allows us to grow, but we are also able to use any other catalyst that comes our way too. Our subconscious mind helps to focus our conscious mind to interpret the catalyst that comes our way in a manner that is congruent with our pre-incarnative choices, so that we are likely to see and experience our catalyst in a certain way. And once we go past this illusion, go back into our pre-incarnative state with our soul stream, then there's a review of the incarnation, oftentimes with our higher self or with our guides, that helps us see where we were able to learn the lessons that we wish to learn, and where we maybe did not exactly get to the point of a certain lesson. So then we plan our next incarnation with that in mind, so that we can maybe be more effective in that incarnation with these particular lessons that we learn.
Does it answer your question, Vasily?
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions on that topic for now? No.
Fine.
Okay, then we will switch to Richard. Now you can ask a question.
Yes, thank you. Jim, I just was wondering if you are familiar with the concept of entity attachments. I'm referring to mostly the work of Corey Good. and if you have any personal opinion on that, if it is always possible to alleviate these entity attachments, or if you would say, well, there might be some entity attachments that are so strong that we might need the help of a spiritual shaman or whatever to help us get rid of that.
Actually, I've heard the concept, but I don't know much about it at all. I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay.
There.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. I don't think Ra ever said or mentioned any time the concept of entity attachments. So yeah, okay, but still thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't help you there.
Okay, now I will take one question from my personal side, and it refers to session 87, where it's talked about sexual energy transfer. Here, I would like to ask Jim if you have ever personal experienced sexual energy transfer, and how do you feel it, and how the energy is working on the body. That would be very interesting for me.
Yes, during the raw contact, Carl and I engaged in sexual energy transfers for the purpose of aiding the contact to become longer. We discovered after about session number 16 that if we had sexual intercourse the night before a session, that session would be longer because it strengthened the channel and gave Carl a more what's called vital energy during the session to be able to answer more questions from Ra. The sexual energy transfer only occurs when each person within the sexual energy transfer has activated the green ray or higher. You can't transfer energy below the green ray. The green ray has to be open. So what seems to happen is that the male has a more physical energy and is more vital in that area and transfers physical energy to the female, so she becomes revitalized. The female has more emotional and spiritual energy than most males, so that is what's transferred to the male. So that trade back and forth then is what aids each in having the sexual energy transfer. And having the orgasm together doubles the transfer. Also, if, as we did in the raw contact, if you dedicate the sexual energy transfer to serving the one infinite creator, that also enhances the transfer. And what you feel is the orgasm. And that is something that Ra suggested does not take place just in space-time. It also takes place in time-space, or the spiritual realms, so that this energy transfer is more obvious in the spiritual realms. And I cannot say that either I cannot speak for Carla, but I don't feel I had any knowledge of when it became spiritual. I just assumed that the entire process was a spiritual process because we were dedicating it to the service of the infinite creator and to aid the raw contact.
Wow, that is very impressive. Thank you very much for sharing that one. Anybody have a following up question on that? No. Okay, then we will go to...
Can I have one?
Yes, Thomas?
I just said it yesterday. I was just blown away that Trisha had this in Prague with Carla. Did you talk about this? That Carla showed up? I'm very curious what you think about it.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I have no doubt that that's exactly what happened. Trish was saying, and as you probably heard from her, the story that I got was when they were tuning and getting ready to do the channeling, Trish didn't actually turn around and look, but in her mind, she looked behind them, and they were all being embraced by Carla, who had her arms around them. And when Austin began channeling, Quo also mentioned that the one known as Carla was present. So that is something that I've heard so many times from different people around the world, that Carla has been there at a certain time and engaged in a certain way that gave inspiration or information to people. And I have no doubt that that's happening. No doubt at all.
Okay, Lynn have a question. Thank you. Wait, Lynn, you have to unmute your phone, Lynn.
Okay.
Now
Hi.
we can hear.
So, how is your experience? Do you have such experience that a karma comes to you during your channeling? I do believe yes, right?
I actually ask her to come be with me when I'm channeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I am sure that she does. I also use the same process of tuning myself as an instrument that she used when she was serving as an instrument here at LNL Research. So also after she passed away in 2015, for the next 6 or 8 months, I was able to see her in dreams and communicate with her. And she gave me information at that time too that was very inspirational. So that was probably for me the most important and inspiring contact with her, though I've had other contacts through the years as well.
Oh, how beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Richard have a question as well. You have to unmute your phone. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I always try to click on the red little button and that doesn't work. So I have a question to you, Jim, regarding the harvest. As I recall, Ra doesn't seem to get very specific regarding the amount of people ready for the harvest. And that led me to the question that in the sense of polarization, we of course have to make the step above 51% in service to others to be harvestable. And so for each person, for each individuation, is it that way that we could be harvestable at some days probably, or points in time, and then on other days we are very negative and very sad or broken down, whatever? So if harvest would occur in that period of time, that we would not be harvestable?
Well, I imagine that is possible. What I think the general principle is that each of our energy centers or chakras has a certain quality that is a way of expanding our relationship with others to greater and greater extents. And when you get to the violet ray, you have what is called the overall balance of the entity, so that when you have difficult times or harmonious times, you go back and forth between positive and negative, that the overall polarization is gauged in the violet ray when you walk into the light after you've dropped your body. And as you're able to walk more and more into the light, you then find at some point that the light is too glaring, it's too strong, and you need to step aside. And at that point, then you may be at the end of third density, or you may be at the beginning of fourth density. But it's all gauged by what is in the violet ray, which reflects the overall balance of how you have been able to relate in a positive or negative fashion consciously with other entities throughout your life experience.
Okay, all right. So what I'm understanding is that it's not like you're being punished in a way if you just had a couple of days with very negative and very bad experiences and you feel very low in energy and very service to self probably even. And so it's not like if you have a couple of those days and harvest occurs in that moment, that you probably have to go back and do the whole circle of 75,000 years once again.
No, that's not the way it works. It's an overall lifetime gauging of how you've been able to be of service to others. And I'd like to add that this is something that, we have to be conscious seekers of truth in most instances in order to be able to see what we want to do with our lives. Most people are not aware that there is a harvest. People are sometimes aware that there might be a heaven, there might be a hell, but not really aware of where they're going and how they get there. You have to be consciously seeking in a way that allows you to use your catalyst, as I said before, to move forward along that path of becoming at least 51% service to others. 51% is just enough to tip the balance, just enough to get going. And you think that, well, that shouldn't be too hard, but we won't know that until we walk into the light ourselves. I think,
That's right,
though,
yeah.
another thing that we need to remember is that it's our intentions for what we do that are most important, because as Ross said, this is not the density of understanding. We cannot know exactly how we're doing. All we can know is what we intend to do. So our intentions are what really carries us to the next, the level, the fourth density.
So this leads me to the next question. There is quite a difference between the wheel of karma and how it works and positive or negative polarization. So we might even be polarizing positive in the sense that we think we are doing the right thing for others, but this still gets us caught in the wheel of karma. Do you think that's possible?
It's possible, but the way to stop the wheel of karma is forgiveness.
Yes.
Forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others, and then
It's not so easy, I guess. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your question.
Okay, then we go now to Vasilis. You have a question again?
Yes, I want to ask about vital energy. It's not so clear as a concept to me. What is it strength? Is it energy to do things? I'm not sure about this. And how to increase it? I understood it's the sexual energy transfer is one way. And I imagine that, I think that meditation would also be, I mean, I feel energized about this, but I would like to hear what is your take?
Well, Ross suggested vital energy is the energy of the mind, the body, and the spirit used in a spiritual sense and a spiritual process. So that the vital energy that Carla had when we were doing the sexual energy exchanges was enhanced by our having that sexual experience together and both having orgasms. That allowed us to enhance her vital energy, her body, mind, and spirit energies, which she was using in a spiritual sense, not just in the sexual energy exchange, but in the next day when we had sessions with those of Ra, so that we could get information that would help all of us to understand more about what the law of one was and how we can all utilize that in our life pattern.
Did you answer your question? Do you have a follow-up question on that?
What ways are to increase? How to increase it? Is there anything else apart from sexual energy exchange?
That is the only way that I know of doing that. When you have a partner that is engaged in that process with you, and you both determine what it is you are wishing to do through that energy exchange. If it is your desire or your intention to increase your vital energies by so doing, then the sexual energy exchange would do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take one question from my side. Jim, what would be your answer to somebody who is not familiar with the raw material, who have difficulties to find out who am I and what is my duty in life?
To somebody who's not familiar with the raw material?
Yes.
Well, I guess from the first time we ever had contact with the Confederation of Planets in the service of the Infinite Creator back in the 70s and Don and Carla earlier in the 60s, they always said, meditate, because in meditation, if you are desirous of making contact with the Creator, that is a time where you will be given inspiration or information that will be helpful to you in discovering who you are. Now, it's not always in words. Sometimes in meditation, if you go in there with the desire to know more of who you are, then the Creator will speak to you in thoughts too deep for words, so that these thoughts cannot be described by words, but you at the level of your spirit can discern what is being said, and you can have this unconscious knowing begin to bubble up into your consciousness in your daily round of activities. But meditation here is the key. And going into meditation with the knowledge that you can be communicated with in some fashion with the Creator is also very important to know as well.
Thank you very much, Jim. So then we have Michael have a question.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I just maybe it's a little bit related, but I wanted to know like how can I connect better with myself in order to become whole? Like I understand that for every person this path is different, but sometimes I feel torn between taking actions like meditating, reading, or doing other stuff to achieve this. And on the other hand, sometimes I feel like I should do nothing, like just observe my mind, observe my thoughts. And it's between being restless and doing nothing every day. Being restless, especially when I get any sensation in my body, in my head, in my heart, in my throat. These sensations make me restless, but then I ignore them. So I'm like, I don't know, in a hide and seek. So yeah. So I mean, anything you can tell me about it would be nice. And also, what's the role of lucid dreaming and astral projection in this, and if it can help me, or how it is related to all this process? And yeah, that's my question.
Okay, that's a very good question. How to know yourself better? It seems to me from what you said that you are making a very intensive effort on a nearly constant basis to discover more about yourself. And I think that's a very good thing to do. I think what you've done is to set your intention to do that. And that's the important thing. Your intentions, as I said before, are really the guiding factor in how you discover more about yourself. Wanting to do that, knowing there's a value in that. And when you discover more, then build upon that. We are infinite beings, and we're each unique. And this process of discovering more of ourselves is something that will go on for quite some time. So I think what you're doing is really quite wonderful, and I'm very impressed. As far as astral projection and so what was the other quality? Astral projection and
lucid dreaming, or remembering
oh yeah, lucid
dreaming.
yeah, lucid dreaming. That is something that can really be of help in giving you ideas and clues as to the direction that you need to go in order to be able to discover more about yourself, to kind of put the puzzle pieces together and to figure out who you are. Lucid dreaming and dreams of all kinds have always been very helpful to me to discover more of these messages that seem to come from my unconscious or from my higher self, or from those areas of my being that have the knowledge that I'm seeking. So the lucid dreaming and any kind of dreaming, working with dreams, is very helpful. As far as astral projection, I think that is something that's kind of a side effect for some people as part of their abilities, their psychic abilities. Some people are more able to do that than others. I've never done it myself. I've known of people who have done it. And it seems that it can be used as a tool for discovering more spiritual information. But in general, it seems to be just a very interesting ability that kind of makes one wonder. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that answered my questions. And can I ask one more thing? Like, what's the difference or the similarity between my higher self and my spiritual guides?
Well, your higher self is actually, Ross suggested, that is us at the mid-sixth density. Our higher self is a quality of our being that has what you might call a roadmap of all of the journey that we will take between now and the mid-sixth density. And it helps us along that journey from time to time if we ask it to, or sometimes just sort of out of the blue, we get information. Now, our guides can do some of the same things, give us information that's very helpful as we are traveling our spiritual journey, to give us these hints and clues as to what would be helpful to do if we've been thinking about studying a certain course or book, or becoming a student of a certain teacher. Those are things that our guides can also help us with. And sometimes it's almost impossible to determine whether it's a guide, your higher self, or even what Ra calls the mind-body-spirit complex totality, which is like the higher self of the higher self. And it exists at the seventh density level. So there are various sources of information and inspiration that we are able to tap into from time to time that give us information that help us along our spiritual path.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jim, I have also another question from the group, which was asked earlier this week. Do you know if there is also negative polarized wanderers? And if they are there, can they lose their polarization when they use incarnation for service to others in this circle?
When they use intonation for service to others?
When the first question is if they are also negative polarized wanderers, and if they are exist and they are in the incarnation and using service to others, so what happened to their polarization?
Well, first of all, what Ra had to say about negative wanderers is that they are very rare, because the negative entity is not too eager to risk going through the veil of forgetting and then maybe do what you said, forget that it's negative polarity and that it wants to stay that way. So I imagine it would be a little disconcerted once it got out of the incarnation, discovered it polarized positively, because it went backwards as far as it's concerned. Rod did suggest, though, that there had been some negative sixth density wanderers. And Don asked if they could identify them. They said that they could not do that because it would be an infringement upon the free will of some that might have been involved with those entities, which suggested to me that maybe somewhere back in history, there's some famous entity that seems to be positive but was actually negative. I don't really know. So apparently that has happened, but it's very rare when it does. Rod did mention, though, that when they were in the third density on Venus, that there were a couple of wanderers of a positive nature. They incarnated to be of service there, but during their incarnations became negative. And when they left the incarnation, they were very disconcerted because they had to go back and repeat some of third density with those of Ra in order to regain that positive polarity.
Oh, it's a very interesting topic for me. Thank you very much. Anyone have any further question?
Yeah, I would just that just popped up into my mind. If we consider all those elitists in our world, in our current illusion, that, and if we also take in consideration the fact that most evolved souls do make a choice in where they are next going in the next incarnation, that if you are, for example, a child of the Rockefellers or whatever kind of elite that is in very negative contact, that those might be probably negative wanderers. Because I mean, why would you, as a positive soul, take that journey? I mean, that's just I just couldn't make any sense out of that. Or it's probably just souls that are actually not taking the choice in where they incarnate. But that would just be my best guess in where negative wanderers would go in terms of having very little positive influences in terms of losing their negative polarization.
Right. I think at one point Don asked Ra if they could give us an indication as to some negative entities on Earth at that time. And Ra said, well, that would be an infringement upon everyone's free will for us to name them. But you can determine this for yourself just by looking at your political structure and economic structure, and see those who are looking to gain power. And the gaining of power over others can be seen as negative energies.
Any follow-up question on that, Richard? Okay. Then I see Lynn have another question. You have to unmute your phone when you want to talk.
Yes. About the negative wonders, maybe, or that I have a similar question. Do you think, Jim, there's a possible that beings from Maldek who carries a lot of traumas and could then sensitive human and living on the surface? So far, I remember in Ra, there are some few incarnated, like boat, right?
Right.
So do you think maybe and living among us, is that possible?
It's possible. I think reason that the Bigfoot entities in existence was because those from Maldek needed to make another try at restitution for destroying their planet. And the only bodies that were available were those of the ape type. So at some point, some of these entities that had become Bigfoot from Maldek were able to incarnate into the normal third density bodies. And some had left the Earth plane to go to other planets to continue their third density experience, but some were still here. And those were hoping to be able, in their incarnations, to go in another direction, to make reparations for what they had done to their planet. And that is part, apparently, of where nuclear energy has come from. It didn't, it came of its own accord as scientists were looking for ways of increasing energy that could be utilized for power. And some of that information came from the Confederation. But as with a lot of information that's come from the Confederation, it was distorted and became not just used for power generating, but for the power of destruction in bombs. So some of these entities from Maldek are hoping that they can use the energy of the nuclear energy in a positive way. So I hope they do too.
Did you answer your question?
Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I
So-
didn't know that.
So we are coming to the end of our 1 hour Q&A. So if anybody have a question, you should ask now. And otherwise, I have one question. Jim, Jochen, willst du was fragen?
Yeah.
Then
Jim, I'd like to, I was the whole evening I was thinking about what you were saying in the beginning about the balancing. And that you mentioned that the balancing goes up until the 6th density, so to say. Yeah. And I was wondering, I'm just adding this as an interesting thought, or maybe you have some, or someone else has also some thoughts about it. Leading up to the philosophical question about the nature of the soul. And we're often thinking about balancing, that it is required that we become balanced and relaxed so that we can meditate, so to say, and be able to deal with all the catalysts. But if balancing goes on up to the sixth density, then it becomes even a more core quality or activity of the soul, as being a balancer of catalyst, of impulses sent by the creator. And I found this to be a very interesting thought, so to say, that the creator sends us out in order to balance whatever comes through us, and learning through our individual take on these vibrations. And that is only loosely connected to just one thought I'm carrying around the recent days, where I remember that Ra so easily said to Don, when Don asked, could you give us an example for a sub logoi? When Ra said, well, you are one of those, so to say. And that is quite honoring any conscious life form as being quite direct sub-representations of the sub-logoi of the stars. And I felt that there is a long discussion of being, is the soul female or is the soul male, right? In many traditions. And often the take is the soul is female in the sense that it is enjoyed by the creator, and the creator is the original creator, so to say, and everything created is female. And that might definitely be the truth, so to say, in one sense, but I felt that Ra has given a different, or just this other surprising perspective, that we ourselves are extensions of the creator, of the logos sent forth to experience. And our body of light, so to say, could be seen as a female form, where with our love we bring into form these impulses of the creator. And how do we do that? It could be that balancing the catalyst that is sent by the creator is the core principle of how we do that. That sounds esoteric a little bit, but these are some thoughts occurring around this topic.
Yeah, well, Ra suggested that each biological male is female and each biological female is male. Right here in the third density illusion, we have all those qualities in us. We express them in one way or another, that people can determine how we express them, which we are. Although today you probably are aware that there are various gradations of male and female in females and males. Ra also suggested that the type of balancing they are doing at the end of the sixth density is infinitely subtle, so that they have been doing it for so long that they are balancing the smallest of things, the little details of life. They mentioned a number of times that they were not what we would call perfect beings, that when we were talking about the negative polarity, had to be 95% successful in serving the self. They said that they did not approach that same purity in their own positivity, but that they were, as we were, Don, Carl, and I, having our own catalyst to work with, but having the desire to become more and more positively polarized. So in that regard, they had some distance to go, and Don, Carl, and I had quite a more distance to go. And as far as the soul, I think the soul is probably not either not male or female. I think that we incarnate one way or another for certain reasons in different incarnations. We've all been male and female biologically in many incarnations.
So real logos has no gender.
Right. We can choose either one or both in whatever degree. It's all unique. It's all personal choice.
Thank you very much.
Thank
If
you.
no one has a additional question regarding this, what Jochen just asked, I would like to ask a new question. So anyone else on this topic?
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What do you think about the harvest once again, and the changes, the planetary changes that it will bring forth? So there is a couple of people that are going so far that they are estimating some safe zones, because as most people probably know, the shifts we are going to see probably sooner than later will also have a somewhat violent impact on our planetary sphere. And I recall that Ra has said that those changes that are coming with the harvest are very, very unimportant. So I don't think there's been too many cases in which Ra has put so much pressure on something being so unimportant. But for us humans living here that are considering this, that there will be severe changes, and what might be including tsunamis and very severe earthquakes and floodings and all that kind of stuff. Do you think there is any value in considering going to some of those considered safe zones, or do you think it's just what Ra mentioned, very unimportant, not only to the law of one, but also to our life right here?
I don't know about safe zones. I don't know if they could be accurately determined, because what seems to be happening is that the thousands of years of war and bellicosity that we've had on planet Earth has caused this anger of separation to soak into the crust of the Earth, so that there is the necessity from our Mother Earth to release this anger, this heat, is in what you said, tsunamis, volcanoes, earthquakes, and so forth, gently, rather than all at once, so that it can blend in the fourth density vibrations that are now engulfing our planet in a harmonious manner, and that this will be done and it will be successful. So I think the reason Ross said it was unimportant was that this is just a process that is necessary to undergo. And I don't think that it's predictable as to where safe zones would be. So what we need to do is to continue giving that love and light of the Creator that is within the heart of every being to everyone around us, become beacons of love and beacons of light, so that we can help to reduce some of the anger, the bellicosity, the separation, and this heat that has to be released, that we can help release it by loving. Love is the power that made the universe. And all of us have that power of love flowing through our hearts. And we can share with others whenever we have the chance. And I think that's probably the better thing to do, instead of worrying about where we can go to be safe physically. Because physically, we're all going to leave this planet at some point, whether it's through an earthquake, tsunami, or what, or just, dropping the body and going on. So while we're here, I think it's better to focus upon the higher spiritual principles, because that is the real nature of reality. That's the nature of our own being. And that's the direction that we're all going, into the fourth density, however many or few make it there. And we won't know that until we're all there. Ra had that one really inspiring quote: "Could your planet harmonize positively in one fine, strong moment of inspiration? Yes, my friends, it is not probable, but it is ever possible."
Okay, thank you very much. That was pretty much my thought.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jim. It was if anybody have any short question, he should jump in now. Otherwise, I would go.
Just the one thing.
Yes.
For that very possible moment, I believe for Earth, we need a huge catalyst, right? To
I've been
flip
thinking that
over
myself.
everyone. Yeah.
And I've always thought that maybe what could be the catalyst that would cause everybody to positively polarize? Nuclear war, or the beginning of nuclear war, and everyone saying, no, that cannot be. I don't know. There could be something else, but I've had that same thought myself.
Yeah. In that moment, love, the pure love need to reach from the heart. So, you know, it's maybe not just simply no to nuclear, but I don't know. I just think. Thank you.
Thank you too.
I'm a little scary moment keeps to come. Thank you so much, Jim.
Yeah.
Appreciate.
Thank you for questions. I appreciate all of them. They're very good questions.
Okay, Jim, do you have some closing words for us? Maybe you talk about from your current work on the book. That would be maybe quite interesting for everybody.
Well, Carla wrote Living the Law of One, 101, The Choice. And a lot of people have really gotten a lot of benefit from that because it makes the raw material a little more easy to understand. It's kind of dense in places. So she made the outlets for Living the Law of One, 102, the outer work, and Living the Law of One, 103, the inner work. And she only got as far as reading the first chapter, 102. So since then, I've written a first draft of both 102 and 103. And at this time, I'm sharing them in my Camelot journal entries every day. And I'm on 102, the outer work, and chapter 7 right now. But they're available on our Bring Forth site, I believe, now, bringforth.org. And if you don't find it, we're trying to transfer all of the information that's on bringforth.org to our new website, www.llresearch.org. And so if you don't find them on Bring Forth, it should be on the new website. I'm not up to date yet on when the transfer is going to happen, but it will be soon. And so if anybody's interested in reading that and reading along what I have to share, I'd love to have you do it, because that was Carla's part of her life work and part of mine too.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you very much for your time and that you answer all this quite very interesting question. And I hope we can repeat it someone next year.
I'll be glad to do it. I thank you all for your questions. They were all wonderful questions. You're wonderful people. I love you all. Y'all take care.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night or day.
Good day.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.